He rewrote the meaning of art, split form from logic, tore beauty into pieces and made the world stare. They called him genius, visionary, immortal. But for 4 children, he was none of those things. He left no will, no explanation, no frame wide enough to fit them in. Each one born from a different woman. Each one raised under the weight of his name and the emptiness it left behind. Some carried his blood, others carried his silence. None carried his love for long. One became his chauffeur. One was hidden across the street from his wife. One was disowned for a book his mother wrote. One was forgotten, then crowned the keeper of everything. He painted thousands of faces, but never truly saw his own children. In this film, we count down the lives of the 4 Picassos, not the ones in the museums, the ones he left unfinished, from the son who died waiting to be seen, to the daughter who now decides what the world remembers. Their stories are not brushstrokes, they are wounds. They are names caught in courtrooms. They are love denied, then reclaimed. This is not art history. This is the history he refused to paint. If you believe stories like these deserve to be told, subscribe now and stay with us. Number 4 begins now. Paulo Picasso. He was the first to carry the name, but never the crown, never the canvas, never the father. Paulo Picasso entered the world in 1921, born to Olga Koklova, a ballerina, and for a few quiet years he was a muse, not a shadow. His father painted him as a laughing harlequin, not knowing that behind that costume a tragedy was already waiting. At 6 years old, Paulo saw his world collapse. Picasso, restless, brilliant, unstoppable, fell for a teenage mistress named Marie-Thérèse, and the home Paulo knew split like a cracked mirror. His mother left, and Paulo drifted, not toward greatness, but toward the edges of his father's orbit, never inside it. He became the chauffeur of a legend, the assistant to a man who would never assist him back. He drove Picasso to galleries, to lovers, to empires, and was paid in small bills and silence. He drank, not to forget, but to survive remembering. Still, he tried to build his own family. He had children, Marina, Pablito, Bernard, but the shadow was already moving to them. In 1973, when Picasso died, Pablito, Paulo's eldest son, was barred from the funeral by Picasso's widow, a legacy defended by gates and lawyers. Pablito drank bleach. He died alone at 24. Paulo never recovered. 2 years later, he too was gone, dead at 54. His liver collapsed, but the truth, it was grief that killed him. He was the only legitimate child. But legitimacy means nothing when the man who gave you his name never gave you his love. He didn't become an artist. He didn't build an empire. He didn't even leave a quote behind. But he carried the weight. Number 3. Maya. She was born in secrecy, not in a hospital, but in the blind spot of a genius. Maya Picasso, real name Maria de la Concepcion, was the daughter of Marie-Thérèse Walter, Picasso's young mistress, and the reason his marriage cracked like a fresco left in the rain. When Maya cried for the first time, she did so across the street from Picasso's home with his wife. He kept Marie and the baby tucked in an apartment just meters away. One life for public view, one life in the dark. But the irony? Maya became the light. He adored her, not in law, but in paint. There are canvases where her smile lives forever, cheeks full, hands grasping toys, a daughter immortalized in color, even when her name was still hidden. She couldn't pronounce Maria, she said Maya. And the nickname stayed, soft, bright, human. For 10 years, she didn't even know she had a brother. For 10 years, Picasso's wife didn't know Maya existed. But secrets like that can't stay quiet forever. When the truth came out, it broke the marriage. Olga left in grief. Maya stayed in her father's orbit, sometimes in Paris, sometimes in the suburbs, always in the strange twilight between child and secret. She met Claude. She met Paloma, her half-siblings from yet another woman. And somehow, she never turned bitter. She taught her father how to swim. She let him cut her hair. He feared barbers might cast spells on her locks. She believed in his love, even when others only saw his chaos. And when he died, she defended him, not blindly, but fiercely. She became an art historian, a guardian of the archive, a flamekeeper of the legacy. Her daughter Diana followed in her steps. Her son Olivier wrote the family's untold stories. Maya didn't just carry the name, she gave it context. Even as the lawsuits flew, even when her mother took her own life in grief, Maya stood like a lighthouse, not loud, but unwavering. She lived until 2022, 87 years, still answering questions about her father, still remembering the way he used to hold her hand and paint her laughter. She was never Picasso's wife's daughter, never the child of a legal union, but she was the one he painted with the most joy. Number 2, Claude. He was born into brilliance, but raised in the shadow of silence. Claude Picasso, son of Françoise Gillot, the only woman who ever left Picasso, not the other way around. In the early years, there was warmth, photos of Picasso building sandcastles with Claude and baby Paloma, laughter echoing on the beach in the south of France. But Picasso's heart was a gallery of unfinished rooms, and Claude's door closed early. When Françoise published her memoir, Life with Picasso, Picasso responded with finality. He vanished. No more visits, no more calls, no forgiveness. Claude was 17. He would never speak to his father again, but death rewrites power. When Picasso died in 1973, without a will, Claude stepped forward, no longer the son erased, but the man who would guard the name. He led the legal battle to be recognized, fought for Maya, for Paloma, for himself. 6 years of negotiation, courtrooms, and 45,000 untitled works waiting for justice. He won. And then he built the system his father never did: an archive, a structure, a legacy office. Claude ran the Picasso estate for decades, authenticating works, licensing rights, preserving what once abandoned him. He never cursed his father. He called him monumental. In 2023, Claude passed away. Before he left, he handed the keys to his sister. He was disowned in youth, but in the end, he was the only one who signed the checks. Number 1. Paloma. She was born with a dove in her name and a storm in her blood. Paloma Picasso, daughter of Françoise Gillot, came into the world in 1949, just 2 years after Claude, just 4 years before silence. Picasso named her Paloma, Spanish for dove, the same year he drew one for peace. But peace never stayed long. By the time she could walk, her mother had already walked away, and Paloma was raised far from her father's orbit. Paris, not Provence. Questions, not answers. At 15, she was cut off. No calls, no birthdays, no goodbyes. Picasso never spoke to her again, not once, and when he died, she was banned from the funeral, barred, like Maya, like Claude, as if memory itself had a guest list. But Paloma was not built to break. She found beauty in other shapes, not canvas, but color, not museums, but mirrors. As the art world mourned Picasso, Paloma designed jewelry for Yves Saint Laurent, lipstick for Tiffany, perfumes that carried her name, and silence that carried his. She wore red lipstick to school at 6. By 22, she was defining elegance on her own terms. No brush, no permission. She paused her rise to help Claude organize the estate. Thousands of pieces, legal battles, mistrust, memory. And when it was over, she walked back into her life, not as the painter's daughter, but as Paloma. Her brand became global, bold, unapologetic, unmistakable, just like her. She married, divorced, rebuilt, and unlike her siblings, she had no children. Her legacy would not be blood, it would be vision. In 2023, Claude passed the estate into her hands. April 1973. Picasso was dead, 91 years of colour, chaos, cruelty, sealed in a grave. But the day they buried him, his own blood stood behind the fence. Claude was not allowed to attend. Paloma was not allowed to attend. Maya was not allowed to attend. Only one child stood by the grave, Paulo. And even he was not embraced. He was tolerated. The ceremony was controlled by Jacqueline Roque, Picasso's widow, final gatekeeper, last sentinel of the myth. She sent no invitations. She opened no doors. Outside the cemetery, the others waited, not just banned from their father's death, but from his memory. And one young man could not bear it. Pablo Picasso, Paulo's son, was 24. He begged to attend, begged to say goodbye. Jacqueline refused. Cold, final, absolute. And so Pablito drank bleach, a desperate act, an unbearable silence. He died days later, not from poison alone, but from being erased. That moment shattered the family. Whatever thread remained between Picasso and the people who carried his name snapped. There were no paintings to come after this, no more reconciliations, only lawsuits and pain. He left behind no will, only signatures on canvas, and 4 children with no map, just a mountain to climb. The estate was chaos, paintings stacked in closets, sketches in drawers, gold bars, villas, stock portfolios, tens of thousands of works, unsigned, uncatalogued, untamed. And the law? It only recognized one heir, Paulo, the legitimate son. But Maya, Claude, and Paloma weren't footnotes. They were blood, and blood remembers. Claude led the charge. With Paloma at his side and Maya holding firm, they filed suit to be recognized in court, not just as Picasso's children, but as his rightful heirs. Jacqueline, the widow, resisted. Lawyers circled. The French government hovered, hungry for inheritance tax. And as this legal storm roared, the question became clear. What does it mean to inherit a name you were never allowed to say out loud? The battle lasted 6 years, but in 1979 it ended. The court ruled in their favor. The Picasso estate would be divided between Jacqueline Roque, Maya Widmaier, Claude and Paloma, Marina and Bernard, children of Paulo. The myth became a machine. Claude stepped into leadership. The children, once barred from the funeral, were now stewards of an empire. To pay the tax, they offered paintings, masterpieces turned over to the state. Those works became the heart of the Musée Picasso in Paris. From exile to institution, from silence to signature. What does it mean to inherit a legacy born from absence? Pablo Picasso didn't survive the wait. Denied entry to his grandfather's funeral, he swallowed bleach. 24 years old. One last cry Picasso never heard. His father, Paulo, followed 2 years later. One drank poison. The other drank silence. Both were devoured by the same name. But not all the grandchildren were lost. Marina Picasso, daughter of Paulo, inherited a portion of the estate and a lifetime of wounds. She turned her inheritance into healing. She sold paintings to fund orphanages, spoke openly about the damage Picasso caused, and wore her name like a scar she refused to hide. Bernard Ruiz Picasso, her half-brother, took a different path, focused on preservation. He co-founded a foundation, worked to protect the archives, a quiet guardian in the modern age. Maya's children too carried the legacy forward. Her daughter Diana became an art historian. Her son Olivier wrote books to correct the story. Each grandchild inherited something different: money, memory, trauma, purpose. He gave the world new ways to see. But what did he see when he looked at his children? To Maya, he was tender. He painted her joy. He cut her hair himself, afraid of strangers casting spells from her locks. She remembered love. To Paulo, he was cold, a father who mocked, underpaid, kept him close, but never lifted him up. To Claude and Paloma, he was a silence that grew louder each year. No birthdays, no reconciliations, no second chances. Some say he was cruel, that he used people like he used color until he found something brighter. Others say he loved, just not in ways the world could understand. He painted his children, but never gave them credit. He built empires from their faces, but wouldn't let them inside the museum of his heart. Was it ego, madness, or simply the cost of greatness? He could be generous, he could be brutal. He was never ordinary. To be born from genius is to inherit fire. And fire warms, but also burns. So was Picasso a father, or only a creator? The truth doesn't live in court documents or interviews. It lives in fragments, paintings, silences, broken funerals, unspoken regrets. Time moved on. The paint dried. The lawsuits faded. But the name, Picasso, remains heavier than ever. The museums thrive. The exhibitions tour. The estate grows. And behind it all, the children became curators of the man who never fully held them. Maya lived to 87. She died in 2022, a quiet force who never stopped defending the father who hid her. Claude passed in 2023. He left behind archives, structure, and the estate he once fought to enter. Paloma lives on, a designer, a brand, and now the head of the Picasso name. The child once cut off by silence now signs the authorizations. Now decides what bears the crown. They don't all agree, they don't always speak, but they all carry something. A name, a grief, a shadow. The man is long gone, but the signature remains. No child was painted the same, no memory matched another. But together they hold the frame. He broke the rules of art, shattered shapes, bent light, made time weep through color. But in the end, his greatest canvas was not a painting. It was 4 children, each born from love, each shaped by silence. One drove him through the streets of France, but never drove into his heart. One played with dolls beneath the brush, but grew up behind locked doors. One was erased by exile, then rose to sign every page. And one, the girl with red lipstick and no father to watch her grow, now holds the keys to his kingdom. They were not portraits, they were people. He gave them his blood, but never his presence. He gave them his name, but never its shelter. And yet they carried him, through lawsuits, through grief, through galleries filled with the father who never looked back. He painted thousands of faces, but never truly finished their own. The world remembers the genius, the cubist, the revolutionary. But behind the legend, there were 4 lives that did not ask to be born into chaos. 4 stories the world was never meant to see. Now you've seen them. This was not the history of Picasso. This was the frame he never signed. The children he painted, but never finished. Subscribe if you believe legacies aren't just painted. They're lived, lost, and reclaimed.